Good day to everybody. Today we'll be discussing the Imperial Sewers and the flag bosses that you encounter in those sewers. While you may have your gears and skills all set and ready, you need to take precaution with each one of these bosses, for they can quickly overwhelm you if you're not prepared and destroy you, thus losing all your Telvar that you've earned. Well, half of it at least. For the video, we'll separate the Daedra flag bosses that you'll encounter into two categories. We'll have class and we'll have types. There are 5 different class, depending on how we view classes, and 2 types. I'll go over each classes before going over the types, since the types are only an added difficulty towards the class. For the sake of this video, I'll put a quick link for each class and types here on the side. I would suggest viewing the entire video, but if you're curious about a specific boss, then just click one of these links and it will push you over to that time. Let's discuss class. So there are DK, 2 types of mages, though I put them into one type because their attacks are very similar with very slight differences between them. Fire Mage and Ice Mage. Dual Wielding Assassin, 2-handed Berserkers, and a Necromancer. Let's start with the DK. The DK's attack moves are Dragon Talons, which immobilize you, Fiery Breath, which does a cone attack in front of him with a DOT effect if you get caught in the cone attack, a Lava Whip, which not only does a devastating attack, but also knocks you back as well as stun you. And finally, 2 shield, which he uses to protect himself. The Dragon Talons are usually nothing, unless if it's comboed with a fiery attack, a fiery breath. I would suggest using some of your stamina to roll away and break free from the talons, because he usually follows up the talons with a fire breath. With fiery breath alone, you can just take a step to the side and you'll be free. The Lava Whip will push you back as well as stun you, which can also be followed up by fiery breath, and if you don't have the stamina to break free and the timing to get out of a fiery attack, you may have a problem in your hand. So what I would suggest to do for this guy is just roll around him, not roll dodge, but just walk all around him while doing your attacks. Be prepared to do a dodge roll whenever he has his fiery attack, or when he grabs you in a Dark Talon and roll away. His whip attack, his Lava Whip, will need to be blocked. You could take a step back while he's trying to charge his Lava Whip, and that will cause him to miss, but he'll just recharge instantly until he finally gets you. It's just inconvenient. You should just let him whip you, but block it so that you don't take the stun. The 2 shields is what I'm really going to go for here, and that is, the first shield is green and does nothing, but the purple shield reflects projectile damage right back to you. Now, depending on what sort of staff you have, you may be able to inflict some damage to him, but also may want to avoid some other types of damage. A rotation usually involves a light attack and 1 heavy attack. During the purple shield phase, avoid any light attack and possibly any heavy attack, unless if you're carrying a lightning staff, at which point a heavy attack will do a continuous lightning attack, but just never finish the heavy attack, because when you finish the heavy attack, you attack with an additional projectile, which comes back and reflects upon you. So what do you do during a purple shield phase? You put down your AoEs and you do a direct attack, such as the Crushing Shock. Just don't use Crystal Fragment because that's a projectile. You may look into other types of projectiles you may want to avoid, such as arrows, or even the Werewolf Shout. But that's all up to you to figure out what a projectile is. I won't go and try and explain what they all are. The DK may enter a healing phase where he puts himself with a shield and heals himself. We'll go over that when we go over the types of Daedras. Here we have an example of a DK, and we'll go over each steps that he goes through. He does the cone attack here, as you can see, fiery breath. If you get caught inside, you will suffer a lot of damage. Then he immediately follows up with a Dark Talon, Dragon Talon. If that comes up before the fiery attack, you can see that it will do a devastating combo. And then he does a Lava Whip. There's another move he does that's quite unique, at least here in the center of the Imperial Sewers. Though keep an eye out for those slowing effects. Now we can see the green shields in action. It's not doing anything currently, but it will indicate that he will put his purple shield up here. Now it's hard to see, but he has this purple shield right now, so throwing a projectile just means that it will reflect it back on me, just like it did right now. Now we'll go over the mage Daedras. There's two of them, like I mentioned before. You have fire and ice. Their attacks are very similar in the sense that they both do a 3-line attack in front of them in the cone shape, which you can easily avoid by just taking a step to the right or left, depending which way you're going. I'll explain how to avoid some very basic attack by keeping a move on later on. And they also attack you with a light attack. The only difference is basically, does one put a fiery AoE around them, or do they do a frosty AoE around them? Let's go over the fire mage, which does an AoE around himself and then around you if he misses the AoE which is around himself. The AoE will do a DOT, which is devastating, so avoid it at all costs, but you can avoid it by just taking a step. Not really roll dodging, but just stepping onto the side. If you need to, do dodge roll, but I would suggest saving your stamina at all costs. He starts by doing an AoE around himself, and then if he misses, one just under your feet, but if you keep a move on, you'll avoid it without any problem. The Ice Mage does a circle AoE all around him, throwing a bunch of immobilizing frost effect. You can just easily walk over them, just keep an eye on any opening and just walk around that. Those two would also do the same thing as a DK and try and heal themselves with a shield. But again, we'll go over that in the types of Daedras. Keep an open mind. So here we have an example of a mage Daedra. They come in Cryomancer or Pyromancers, but they essentially have the same attack. So here we see a Cryomancer who put 2 AoEs under himself and a cone attack with their special abilities. This is a type 2. He knows that he put some totems down. That will be important in a later explanation. But essentially all they do is put 2 AoEs down under themselves, occasionally do a light attack, and throw a cone attack of whatever elements they have in front of them. The only difference between the Cryomancer and the Pyromancer is the Cryomancer does the immediate AoEs under him and you, while the Pyromancer does AoE around themselves first, it blows up, and then there's an AoE that forms under your feet and blows up. The Berserk Daedras are the two-handed Daedras which carry a long broadsword, hammer, axe, but more primarily it's going to be a sword. Those ones, if you're facing in the group, are going to be untauntable and will decide to attack whoever they want when they enter a quote-unquote red phase. They will eventually force everybody back, including you, in a shout and start to do a little spin attack. The spin attack looks very silly, but no, it's quite devastating. Don't even try and block it. Don't even try and stand in it. Unless if you're an expert tank with good healers around you, you may possibly die. The best thing to do with that is to take him all around the tour. Just walking away should be good enough, but take in mind that if you start running, he speeds up a bit during the phases where you run. So you have to basically keep a one-on-one distance between him and you. Don't take a pause in the way you walk, and try to avoid coming back to the same path even if it's walking around him, because he does a detour to try and shortcut himself to you. The best ways to face him is by having a set of stairs you can go down under and escape. Not a set of stairs, a ledge, and making him having to go down a set of stairs. I'll show a video on what I mean, because this may buy you some valuable time if you're too close to him, or you may just dodge roll off a ledge to avoid his attack and save you some precious health. He does a knockback with a stun effect, but otherwise he's pretty normal in terms of a Daedra. He's pretty easy if you avoid his spin attack. It just means that it's difficult for you to put any AoEs on him, but with some good DOT or single target attack, he should be very fine. While I don't have a good video of me facing a Berserker, one of those two-handed Daedras, I have here a video, an example of what you can do with one of them. So let's just say that the platform I'm on top of right now is called Platform 1, and the one that's just down there off the ledge is Platform 2. So, as you can see here, there's a ledge, and there's a little walkway down to the Platform 2. Let's just say that ledge is a stairwell. So, if he was chasing me on Platform 1, he's very close, right on my ass, I would have to just jump off the ledge onto Platform 2, and thus making him have to go all around to the stairs, giving me enough time to walk away, or just buying me some grounds between me and him, if I keep running. Now we come the Daedric Assassin, who have dual-wielding daggers. Those ones I've always had trouble with, since they kind of scare me. They kind of terrify me, and you'll understand why. For most of the other bosses, you either keep a distance away from them, or they're always on your ass, right? But you keep control on each one of them. The assassins don't really give you any room to breathe. If you keep too far away from them, they immediately teleport to you and lock you in a stun. Or they enter a red phase, which I don't believe is tauntable, but I'm not sure, and just does a series of heavy attack, which is extremely hard to just negate with just a block or shield. If you have to, do negate it with a block and shield, but you're going to have to waste a lot of resources to just do that. What I would suggest do is just walk backwards with your shield up by blocking. This way you keep just enough distance away from him that he doesn't actually successfully hit you with a heavy attack, and thus ends his red phase without actually hitting you. He'll just try and charge up, attempt to hit you, but miss, walk in front of you again, and attempt again, but miss. So, with those two in mind, don't keep yourself too far away from him, but don't stay too close when he enters his red phase, otherwise he'll be a fairly easy hero to go and kill. Here we have an example of what an assassin looks like and how they perform. Now in this video we don't have a proper teleporting strike attack, but I'll show you one in a few seconds. So he put up his shield, and that's a type 1. We'll go over what a type 1 is versus a type 2. Just see that I don't bash him, and thus interrupting his attack, giving me time to either recover my stamina or magicka by doing heavy attacks. He pushed me away, he entered the red phase, and that's the heavy attack barrage. He's going to just chop down my health very quickly. That's devastating if you don't walk away in a very light manner, thus making him miss. And now over here we have a teleporting strike that will happen. What happens at this point is just that he charges at you and stuns you. This could be followed up with an immediate red phase or just a couple of attacks, which can be devastating if you're not prepared, especially if you're facing more than just one Daedra. There's something else I forgot to mention about the assassins is that they have a invisible strike where they just enter an invisible moment and walk over to you to do a heavy attack, which isn't part of their red phase. I failed to mention this because I have AoEs, does just a small attack on him while he's invisible means that he reappears. But for anybody who doesn't have any AoE or attacks that can just happen in a cone shape in front of them, you may find it difficult to track him down. So if he goes invisible on you, just put your shield up. Just block the next incoming attack. That will prevent you from taking a sharp, nasty attack to your health. Then you have the Necromancer. Necromancers, I would say, is also a very tough Daedric boss to face. Upon initiating combat, he summons a Flesh Atronach, which he can summon then again later in his attacks. And the Flesh Atronach can lock you into a stun. That, in combination with the Necromancer's chain attack, it could be devastating. That's why I'm saying keep stamina and keep a look on your stamina resources. Have a try potions ready to restore your stamina because you may have to break away from a lot of stuns and roll away in a moment. Just be cautious. So, as I said before, he chains you and pulls you towards him, locks you in a stun, and then does a massive AoE around him that would be devastating if you don't have a shield. So what would be the best thing to do is break away immediately the moment you see his chain on you. Be ready to break away from the crowd control and roll away. Directly away from him. Not to the side, just directly away from him. He then does another attack where he puts his staff up in the air and throws a barrage of skulls at you. You can easily avoid it by just putting a shield up. Not blocking, but just putting your shield up. And attacking him between intervals. Or by using some, say, dodge rolls, but I would suggest using the stamina for other attacks. Now, there is a way to avoid the Necromancer spanning his Atronach, and that's by letting him go through his healing phase. That's assuming he's type 1 of the two types. I'll just briefly go over this right now because it's important for the Necromancer. Type 1 is just a guy who puts a shield around himself and heals himself. Don't interrupt his healing phase. Instead, drop 2 AoEs around him, or however AoEs you have, DOTs, and don't interrupt his healing, and just burn him down so that he can't heal himself. He doesn't make enough healing, in contrary to how much damage you're making on him. Here we have the Necromancer. Now, let's just take a moment to appreciate all of his attacks. He just summoned up a Flash Atronach immediately, and pulled me over to him with a chain. His Flash Atronach is now doing a power attack to try and stun me, and he put up an AoE around himself. Now, this is what I'm saying. You have to have stamina to get yourself off his crowd control and to roll dodge away. Now, he does his skull attack, and something I failed to mention is that he also puts an AoE around you of a chain attack. But, I mean, if you keep a move on, the chain should not be a problem. And now at this point, he puts up some more totems, which indicates that he's a type 2, and it becomes problematic if you don't have any AoEs trying to take care of those things while also taking care of him. Because he's a type 2, that means that he won't go into a type 1 phase and thus stopping himself from doing another Flash Atronach. So you have to anticipate a Flash Atronach from spawning. You can easily take care of one with AoEs, or if you have a good attack to kill them in a few bash. And here it is. That more or less goes around all the classes of Daedras. Now let's go talk about the types, which, like I said before, is an added difficulty. They're an added difficulty because it depends on whether or not they're a vampire or a regular Daedra. A regular Daedra is a type 1, which would then put a shield around himself and start healing, which is fine. It's a good moment for you to just drop some AoEs, DOT, and then just do a heavy attacks on them to regenerate your magicka or stamina if you don't have the enough required recovery. It could just buy you some valuable time for your potion debuff to wear off so you can take another potion. So, valuable time that you can use. The type 2 Daedras you're going to encounter are going to be the ones that are the most painful. So, for example, imagine the assassin Daedra, but as a vampire. What does that mean? Let me explain. A vampire will lock you into an additional stun on top of any other stuns that the Daedras have, and start sucking your life for their own health. You have to, of course, break out of that, but this doesn't mean that they cannot chain it up with another stun in a few seconds. Devastating for your stamina, and devastating if you don't have enough stamina or stamina in reserve with your potions. So, all the Daedras I talked about before, TK, Mage, and etc., have different phases, different ways of becoming a vampire, and different ways of doing their vampire attacks. As I said before, they're sucking your power away in one way or another. The ones that are close up and personal, such as DK, two-handed, and dual wielding, are going to come to you and try and suck the life out of you, or even at a distance they can do that. So even if you put yourself, say, from one room to another, they can still lock you into a drain. So be sure to not just try and run away and waste all your stamina in running. Have some stamina to break away. I'm telling you this right now because they can drain you till you're dry. The mages, such as the fire mage and the necromancers, have different ways of becoming a vampire, of doing their vampiric phase. What they do is they put the vampiric totems all around them. There's 3 totems in total, and each one of them will regenerate about 10% of their maximum health if they're not taken care of. Additional percentage could be given to them if somebody steps into those totems and feed in more essence to the totem. What would be suggested to do if you're in solo play is to use a wall of elements on one of them, turn around, and, well, wall of elements, it could be any DOT, but a DOT AoE on the one, and turn around and do direct attacks onto a second one. Hopefully the DOT/AoEs that you've put into the first one are effective enough to kill that totem. So you've essentially killed 2 totems, and now just have to take care of one last. Do be aware that there are some DOTs and AoEs that don't take effect on the totems, such as Liquid Lightning. I don't know why, it just doesn't. For every totems you break, the essence and the totem go back to you. I don't believe they heal you if they haven't drained any energy from any players, but if they have, they will drain the energy out of the totem and onto your own health. Take this as an advantage. The best way to face these wizards is usually through a corridor and the small tight halls in the Imperial Sewers. It is not recommended for every Daedras. Just be careful, be cautious, but if you trap them into a hall, when they do the totems, 2 of their totems, or even all 3, can be caught in a very tight space, thus meaning that an AoE attack can effectively hurt all 3 of them simultaneously. That's meaning you have to focus less on the totem and more on the Daedra. Thank you very much for listening in, and good luck with the Imperial Sewers.